You don't know me, but I would like to ask for your help with something. You see, I've always fancied being a novelist. To write a book, wouldn't it be excellent? Despite the fact that I left school at 17 with no real qualifications, and I've never actually published anything in the realm of fiction before, I think I'd be pretty good at it. Something sci-fi, something funny. I think I'm quite a funny person. My mum laughs at my jokes, even if you lot won't. But yes, so I want to write a book, and Douglas Adams was a big influence as well, so maybe it would be something along those lines. No idea what it will be about yet, but I did bring along a picture of my cat playing a video game. My cat doesn't actually play video games. It's Photoshop. It's good though, isn't it? Yeah, so when I've decided what this book is going to be about, well, I guess 15 months to write it, deliver it. For a £5, you'll get an ebook. Bung in 25 quid, I'll do you an unabridged audiobook, read by me, of course. Not that I've got any experience reading audiobooks, but I'm available, and I'm cheap. So, who's in? No? Okay, well, I guess it is a fairly ludicrous proposition when I put it like that, but actually, earlier this year, that's exactly what happened. When I decided I want to write a book about a video game that got me into technology at the age of 15 back in 1984. Yes, do the maths, and I'll answer questions later. So yeah, basically, I put this Kickstarter forwards. Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform. And within 4.5 hours of launching my campaign, I had reached my pledge total of 4242, Douglas Adams inspired reference there. So a couple of stretch goals later and some frantic thinking about how I extend it, a month after my campaign went live, it closed to the tune of £17,005. Advanced orders from 811 courageous, some might say foolhardy, sci-fi fans, who are going to have to wait until March next year to discover whether or not their investment has been worthwhile. That's the power of crowdfunding, and I guess in some ways I'm kind of oversimplifying it because my Kickstarter came about around another Kickstarter, the video game Elite that I got into technology. They were launching their own crowdfunding campaign to fund the next version of the game. And one of the elements of that, one of the pledge tiers, was to buy a license to write a piece of fiction. £4,500. So that was my initial crowdfunding campaign to raise the money to buy that license. And I was able to hook into their broader audience of people who were investing in the game, who were, to be honest, going a bit pledge happy at the time. And actually this comes back to what Matt was saying as well about having that direct link to your customer, because they had 38,000 people who had signed up for that Kickstarter. And some of them only signed up for £1. But what that £1 did was it allowed Frontier Developments, and thereby me as well by default through my Kickstarter, it allowed them invited access into their inbox. And the click open rate on these campaign emails is ridiculously high. If you're in marketing, then we're talking figures in terms of 80–90%, because people have invested in the project, and they want to see how it's doing. They want to see how it's getting on. So that was my Kickstarter. But my story is just one of literally hundreds of thousands of real success stories in this field at the moment. Some figures for you. Crowdfunding platforms raised $2.7 billion globally last year. That's an 81% increase from the year before, and funded more than 1 million campaigns. And this is expected to increase to $5.1 billion in 2013. And it's proven to be an excellent method of raising funds for artistic and also charitable projects. It's a model that really fits well in that field. And so a lot of crowdfunding platforms have actually developed that are specifically designed to cater to those markets, which is something I'm sure a lot of people in this room will find very interesting. Now, success doesn't have to mean massive amounts of money, but sometimes it does. You know, Kickstarter is probably the best known of the platforms. It's well known in the design and technology area as well. So, you know, we see things like the Pebble watch, which got funded to a tune of 10,266%, ridiculously high amounts. But also in artistic endeavors, headlines last year, Amanda Palmer, one half of the duet that was Shakespeare's sister, managed to raise $1.1 million to fund her next album and tour. Now, when you think in terms of talking about piracy and about what might be the next intellectual property model for the future, one of the discussions I was involved with at the Internet Governance Forum last year in Azerbaijan was about this very topic. And actually what came out of the discussion, despite the fact that all of the big media moguls were sort of bemoaning their lot in life, you know, maybe crowdfunding is actually the new IP model of the future, because if you have a creative project that you want to put together and you have an amount that you think it's fair to earn for that project, then you can get it in advance, see if you've got people interested, and you can raise that kind of money. But you don't have to look at this kind of numbers in order to make a real difference. You know, I'm sure a lot of people sitting in this room today, for you, maybe a few £1,000s for your project would make a huge difference, and that is infinitely achievable. There are many different kinds of platforms. So I'm kind of doing a bit of a crowdfunding 101 here, and I just want to run through really the platforms so that you know the difference between them. So consumer lending, this is kind of like, it takes many forms, but it kind of replaces the payday lending. It's the microfinance lending. And there are lots of platforms that allow you to invest in people's future, lend them money, and sometimes get the money back, depending on the platform, and sometimes not. In 2013, loans could exceed, they believe that loans in this field could have been given up to about 1.4 billion, and that's expected to increase by more than 50% from, that was an increase, sorry, by more than 50% from 2012. Next up is reward-based lending. Now Kickstarter was a reward-based lending for me, and this normally involves people coming along and pledging a certain amount for a specific reward. It could be products, it could be merchandising. In the theatre, perhaps, you might sell theatre tickets, and people who pledge a certain amount would get a ticket to the opening night. Those more generous pledgers might be invited to a champagne reception beforehand. In my Kickstarter, my top tier was actually £200. 3 people paid £200 for a category called revenge killing. And for that, I have promised to name a character in the book that will meet a gruesome end at some point during the book. So, yes, looking forward to the legal battles around that. But no, it's very interesting what people will pay for, and they just want to feel part of the project. The next biggest category is the donation market. And now donation market, charitable donations. And actually, the reward category very often has kind of donation categories in there as well. So people who are doing an artistic endeavor might say, for £50 you can have this, but if you don't want to pay that much, you can just pay £10 and I'll give you a thank you in the program, or you'll get a mention on the website or something. So they encourage you to be part of that process just for a charitable reason. And actually, the plus side for marketing as well is then you also have access to that audience even after the event to send them through updates and information. So you can continue building on that relationship and actually even bring them into other projects that you're working on. And then finally, probably the one that gets the most media attention a lot of the time is the venture capital market, equity shares. And this really replaces the search for seed capital going to venture capitalists and angel investors. And there are actually platforms now that will connect you either en masse or with micro lenders who want some kind of share or some kind of equity in your company. And again, you know, the numbers are pretty amazing. There's actually some legislation going through at the moment in North America, and if that changes to allow this kind of lending to be part of the startup culture over there, then it could turn in more than $1 billion worth of funding next year. So pretty amazing figures. So if you're interested in doing a crowdfunding campaign for you, this is a good site, crowdsurfer.co. Again, this is another new startup, and it's a British startup run by a lovely lady called Emily McKay. And it will tell you all of the different crowdfunding platforms, and it categorizes them based on you know, what kinds of rewards, what kinds of structure they have, and you know, where they're located geographically, whether they're creative or financial. So it's worth exploring that. But I'd like to just sort of like run through a few of them now to give you some examples. And I'll put all of this on my website in the next couple of days as well, so that you can refer back to it. Sponsor.me is a good one for the sort of charitable platform. So you can see there's all sorts of things, you know, from theatre and what's that? Written and performance, and Edinburgh Fringe. And this is a new thing. I mean, right? Anybody who's ever done Edinburgh knows you don't make money doing Edinburgh. You just lose hair, I think, is probably one of the main things, and also cash. But actually, a lot of groups now are using crowdfunding campaigns in order to fund their Edinburgh Festival experience. Crowdfunder.co.uk is another good one. There's some very interesting projects there. Books are very big as well. You know, nice creative projects like that. Angel Shares is an interesting one, where they actually sort of have trying to take the angel investor concept, and you buy angel shares, and they're worth £1 each, and then you invest them in bulk into the various different projects. And this is one that was successfully funded, where a local cinema wanted some digital screening equipment, and they were going to go out of business. And you know, it wasn't an awful lot that they were looking for. It was probably £5,000 or £10,000, I think it was. And their local community and extended theatre lovers beyond there, cinema lovers beyond there, felt happy to fund them and make that happen for them. This is WeFunded, another really good one for sort of like small. It's quite easy to get on board, and there's a good community. It's a good vibrant community. And probably one of the best known, other than Kickstarter now up and coming, is Indiegogo. This is a project that I actually helped fund, which is a cat cafe in London, where stressed out office workers can come and have a cup of tea and stroke a cat. And it also acts as a cat shelter as well, as a cat rehoming shelter. So it's a brilliant idea, and something that just never would have got investment in this day and age. So cat lovers among the audience, you book your place. It's going to be awesome. I mean, it just goes to show really that there are some really amazing projects, and no matter what kind of business you're involved in, if you have access to an audience and you have a good idea, one of the things that really struck me about when I started to research this and follow my own experience is that people generally want to see good things funded, especially good independent things funded. And unfortunately, banks and investors and big organizations, they're so driven by profit, and they're so driven by the algorithms that tell them which project is going to make the most profit, that a lot of the really great, innovative projects get left by the wayside. So I'm going to, pricing structures are different on all of them, and it should be noted if you are looking into it to really have a good look across the different platforms that might be right for you and find the one that has the right pricing structure for you. And don't be afraid to build that pricing structure into your targets as well, because people expect that, you know, it's like it's part of the process. There is a percentage that you need to pay to the platform organizers. The other thing I would say to you if you're going to do your own platform, your own project, is make sure you give yourself enough time. Do it at a time when you can interact with it daily. You need to, it's a social experience. One of my backers actually said it was like performance art for him. And so you need to have time to interact with people and give updates regularly and comment, you know, interact with them through the comments section. Regulation, it's kind of a grey area at the moment. Some of the more formalized ones, like the angel investor, they're kind of regulated by the FCA. The peer-to-peer lending is kind of comes under the consumer finance license. But really, when you're looking at charitable organizations and those sort of like microfinancing, developing country projects, they kind of fall into the unregulated field at the moment. And it's an area that the government and the consumer bodies that are actually regulating this in an informal way, they're kind of in discussions at the moment to try and make sure that they come up with a model that offers protection to the consumer but also doesn't stifle the model for the small independent and charity projects that are benefiting from it so much at the moment. Okay, having bored you with the legal stuff, what I want to do is just finish on a note that I hope will give you perhaps a little bit of inspiration for your own journey if you were considering crowdfunding. Last year, a video was posted on YouTube of a 68-year-old grandmother being bullied on a school bus by a bunch of teenage boys. It was posted on YouTube, and within 2 days, millions of people had viewed this video. It was called "Making the Bus Monitor Cry." But then something quite remarkable happened. One young man who'd been bullied himself when he was at school saw this video and decided to do something about it. So he set up a crowdfunding campaign. He decided he was going to try and ask people to help raise money to send this bus monitor on a holiday. $5,000 was the target. It's going to buy a pretty good holiday. Within a couple of days, little more time than it took millions of people to watch the awful video on YouTube, the crowdfunding campaign had hit $500,000. And it closed 30 days later, turning over a cool $700,000 to bus monitor Karen Klein. The internet had spoken, and it had sent a message loud and clear that the crowd doesn't think that bullying is acceptable, doesn't think that mean-spirited people should be the ones to profit and benefit in life. And the crowd is able to affect real change when they group together like this. Hopefully that change, that shift, will be something that you can benefit from in the future as well. I'm now 32 seconds over my time, so I'm going to shut up. But that is my Twitter handle there, @KateRussell. My colleague Bill Thompson in the corner there will tell you that I'm always on Twitter. So if you have any questions or you want me to help in any way and guide you with your own campaigns, then do please come and speak to me on Twitter. Good luck and embrace the change. Thank you.